On this episode of China Uncensored, ISIS is now going after China. And now the Chinese Communist Party versus ISIS. No, not that ISIS. Though now I have a cool idea for season 9. I'm talking about the real ISIS, the one so evil that it forced the writers of Archer to quietly drop the name from the show. This ISIS, also known as ISIL, one of the world's most brutal terrorist organizations, ISIS has killed tens of thousands of innocent people. Well, ISIS is now targeting the Chinese Communist Party, which is also one of the world's most brutal organizations and has killed tens of millions of innocent people. So who do you root for? It's like Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, humanity loses. Back in March, ISIS released a video threatening the CCP. ISIS said it would come to China to clarify to you with the tongues of our weapons, to shed blood like rivers and avenging the oppressed. The oppressed? In China. Sorry, you'll have to be more specific about which group of oppressed people in China you're talking about. But you get the gist. It's a threat. But you know, there's something I don't get. It's not like China is sending its troops into the Middle East to fight ISIS. Actually, the United States has been complaining that China isn't doing its part in the fight against global terrorism. And in some ways, the Chinese regime is doing the opposite. Like when they defended their close ally Pakistan, saying Pakistan is totally not a harbor for terrorists. And that came just months after ISIS killed 2 Chinese nationals in Pakistan. And the Chinese regime, just to prove it really didn't care, blamed the Chinese victims. ISIS killed those Chinese citizens because they were illegally preaching Christianity in Pakistan. Although to be fair, that could have been their fate for illegally preaching Christianity in China too. The Chinese regime has basically stated it won't join the global fight against ISIS. This is not to say the CCP is buddy-buddies with ISIS. It's mainly that their strategy for dealing with the complexities of terrorism in the Middle East is basically, meh, you guys sort it out. I mean, I told you in the last segment that other BRICS countries got China to sign a joint statement to express concern about ISIS, and that's considered a big win, but still doesn't require China to do anything. As Business Insider puts it, while relying on the region for oil supplies, China has tended to leave Middle Eastern diplomacy to the other permanent members of the UN Security Council. Take Iraq, for example. The US initially led the war effort to liberate Iraq from its oil reserves. But now it's China buying up most of Iraq's oil. The Chinese regime also recently announced an almost $500 million construction deal in Iraq to rebuild after the defeat of ISIS. I mean, not that the Chinese regime is specifically planning for the defeat of ISIS. It's more that the Chinese regime wants to include Iraq in its One Belt, One Road initiative. And by and large, this has been the Chinese regime's international strategy in the Middle East since the Cold War. An offend no one and attach no strings strategy. Offend no one and attach no strings. Sounds more like my friend Chad's dating strategy. And much like Chad's love life, the Middle East is still a hot mess. So how did ISIS get so offended by the Chinese Communist Party? I mean, they seem so reasonable. Well, it's because the Chinese regime is fighting a war against terrorists, and by terrorists, they mean the Uyghur people in Western China in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. In China, an autonomous region is like a province. Autonomous means self-governed in the same way that People's Republic of China means it's run by the people. Because in the case of Xinjiang, the CCP has been ridiculously heavy-handed in how things are run. About 10 million of Xinjiang's 22 million residents are the Turkic-speaking Uyghur people. Who are these Uyghur people? In a lot of ways, they're just like you and me. They enjoy riding horses through golden hills on a warm September day, eating spicy noodles at the local street market, sitting through boring college PowerPoint presentations, and loading up on carbs when they know they really shouldn't, but it's my cheat day, so don't judge me. Of course, there's one thing that distinguishes the Uyghur people from most other Chinese. A lot of them are Muslim, mostly secular Muslim, although of course there's lots of religious Muslims there too. The Chinese regime has effectively labeled all Uyghurs as a threat. But it's not like they've singled them out for their religion or anything. Remember, over the years, the Chinese regime has persecuted all sorts of groups. Tibetans, intellectuals, wealthy people, poor people, Christians, lawyers, activists, and even those people who just sit there quietly in yellow shirts. It's equal opportunity oppression. I'm sorry, Uyghurs, you're just not that special. But according to this policy paper, over the years, the Chinese government gradually turned Uyghur national identity and Islamic practices into national security threats. You see, after 9/11, the Chinese regime realized they had a golden opportunity to finally get international support for one of their crazy persecutions, because these victims were Muslim. So any locals who were angry at the CCP for really any number of reasons were suddenly labeled as terrorists. And you don't want to stand up for terrorists, do you? And the CCP thinks that nothing is as effective at stopping terrorism like going after people's traditions. So the CCP banned burqas and abnormal beards. Plus, they banned traditional Muslim clothing, the name Muhammad, and fasting during the holy month of Ramadan for students and civil servants. The CCP has also put extreme surveillance measures in place in the entire Xinjiang region, like requiring a GPS in every car, and forcing residents to install spyware on their mobile phones that tracks everywhere they go, every website they visit, and every text message they send. Yeah, that's not going to make anyone mad. Of course, to keep them in line, the CCP has added a heavy military presence in Xinjiang. Incidentally, the Communist Party chief in charge of Xinjiang is this guy. Previously, he was in charge of Tibet for 5 years. He did excellent work in Tibet, making sure no one there had freedom either. So after years of the CCP treating its Muslim population horribly, guess what? It actually ended up driving some of them to terrorism. Over the years, there have been several acts of terror carried out by Islamic extremists in Xinjiang, like the 2014 car bomb attack that killed 31 people. Actually, Chinese state-run media has labeled about 15 incidents in Xinjiang to be acts of terror in the past 2 decades, although it's hard to know how much of that is really terrorism and how much is just regular crime spun by state-run media as terrorism to justify the heavy-handed treatment of locals. None of the incidents were claimed by ISIS. But after ISIS became an evil global sensation in 2014, ISIS tried to take advantage of Uyghur people's widespread anger with the CCP. This study from a US think tank found that 114 ISIS fighters came from Xinjiang. And now you have ISIS actively recruiting in Xinjiang, even rolling out slickly produced songs in Mandarin to do it. And ISIS is threatening the CCP. But as I mentioned, the CCP kind of created their own problem. For instance, if the Chinese regime hadn't actively destroyed Tibet, killing monks, burning temples, and trying to wipe out their culture, and instead treated everyone reasonably well, there'd be no anti-China movement in the Tibetan community. And the world might never have seen the Beastie Boys and Smashing Pumpkins together on the same stage at the same time. And in Xinjiang, the CCP's oppression has also bred resentment. Most of the Uyghurs there are very moderate in terms of their religion and just want to be left alone by the CCP. Don't we all? But once the CCP started destroying their culture, monitoring their every move, and labeling them as terrorists, it's no wonder some of them have turned violent. And it's no wonder ISIS is now trying to use that anger for its own terrible agenda. Although actually, in a region with 10 million Uyghurs, ISIS has only been able to recruit 114 fighters, which is really, really few. And the number of Islamic terrorist attacks in Xinjiang has also been pretty small compared to the size of the population, at least. But it's a great excuse for the world's biggest totalitarian regime to blame the world's scariest terrorist group and oppress millions of innocent Uyghurs just in case. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time. Don't let the terrorists win. Visit ChinaUncensored.tv. I don't exactly know what that will do to stop the terrorists from winning, but at least you'll be able to see full half-hour episodes of China Uncensored. Freedom costs $1.05, but this is for free. Visit ChinaUncensored.tv.